So as y'all know, I've been moving away from my hammock setup and kind of moving to a setup with a tent. And that's largely not because I have anything against a hammock. In fact, I still feel that that is one awesome way to go backpacking. However, with the tent setup, it makes it easier to have one shelter that I can share with my son, or my wife, or even a friend that just doesn't have the equipment to get out there. So with that being said, I did have a lot of trouble when I first started camping, kind of dialing in a setup where I could be comfortable on the ground. Hence, I went to hammocks. So now I'm kind of refiguring everything out, doing a lot more research, and trying to make this really work. And to that end, I think I figured something out. So for this first video, I'm hoping to put a couple together so they're not too long. But for this first video, we're going to go over just the insulation. That's the sleeping bag slash quilt, depending on how what you're going to get out of the video. So I'm going to go over both setups. Yes, I have two. And that's largely because I had to get a setup for my wife as well. So with that being said, let's get into it. Alright guys, one of the first things that you're going to come across when you're trying to decide your tent setup, your sleep system for it, is this idea of a quilt. There's traditional sleeping bags and then there are quilts. Now, if you're not familiar with a quilt, I have one right here. Basically what it is it's a sleeping bag without a hood and without a back. And what that does is it cuts out all the weight that you'd be sleeping on for that fabric and that down or whatever insulation's on there, because it's wasted down and it's wasted fabric because you're going to compress that while you're sleeping on it. Now, this does save you a ton of weight, and it does give you some freedom of movement and some other benefits to it. However, it's not a perfect world, and there are some downsides. Now, in a hammock, I'm used to my quilts. That's all I use. But the benefit of a hammock is that I have a quilt that kind of wraps around me and cradles me while I'm inside. And because of that, my quilt doesn't have these issues that a ground setup has, which is going to be from the sides on your sleeping pad. It creates these little gaps and air kind of penetrates in there. And now to combat these drafting issues, what manufacturers have typically done is they'll take a strap, they'll put that strap, and it'll go underneath your pad and it'll hold that down. Now this in theory should keep that quilt from having those gaps because it's pressing down with some sort of force that seals that up. Seals up those sides. However, in reality, unfortunately, it just doesn't work in practice. Here's a good example of what I'm talking about. This is a review video of a quilt by Dan Becker, who is, I'm sure, well, most of you probably already know about him, so I won't go into details. But he admits right at the start of the video that he's had issues with quilts in the past due to the drafting issues, but somehow feels as though this one fixes it. So what does he name it? The video is named, Finally, a Camping Quilt with No Cold Drafts. And you can see here on this screenshot of him explaining this awesome quilt and not having any cold drafts. There's a gap right there. I've got it circled on your screen. This guy was fine, I'm sure, when he was sleeping on his back, but as soon as you watch him slowly move over to his side, you can see that gap. It's right by his butt. And although that might be great for ventilation, when you've had some of the backpacking meals, it's not going to keep you warm. You're going to have that draft, and it's going to hit right on your backside where you're going to get that cold draft that a lot of people talk about. And also, this is somebody who's testing out gear in broad daylight. They're not even sleeping and changing positions repeatedly, and yet cold draft. A gap is there. Now, the other thing to notice here is, look how tight this is. You can see because he's got this is a wide, 56-inch wide sleeping quilt. And it's extra wide on the right where it connects to the pad, so that way you can get a really good seal. And that's all fine and dandy, but again, look how tight it is. Okay, so that's the main drawback, but there are others. The other one that kind of pops out to me is because you don't have a back on there, you're feeling your pad. And I'm used to my hammock where I've got this, actually I'll buy a hammock based on the feeling of that fabric. In fact, people have review videos where they'll talk about that fabric, how much stretch it has, how it feels on the skin, and things like that. Well, with a pad, same thing, except almost all of the ultralight pads out there, pads that you're going to be wanting to use backpacking, they really don't have that real nice feel to them. Certainly not as good as some of the fabrics you can get in a sleeping setup. Now, sleeping pads aren't all bad. The two big things that you're going to get out of them, especially in the summertime where they really do perform pretty well, is going to be the fact that you can kind of spread out. You got that freedom of movement, and you can kick a leg out easier. You can really enjoy that freedom that the summer months give you, because all you're looking for is, you know, any insulation over you probably is going to do, especially if you're looking to try to ventilate because it's so hot out. Now, so really the bottom line is this. In my opinion, when it comes to using a sleeping bag or a sleeping quilt, what I've found is that a quilt system is perfect for my hammock setup, but it's not perfect for my ground setup. I think it'll work almost all the time in the summer months. It's great. It's going to be awesome. I don't really worry so much about insulation in general in the summer, so I don't have to worry about it in this case. And it provides me that extra movement. Love it. So summer months, great. Now, if you start pushing those temps in the 3 season, especially where I'm used to in the Adirondacks, you could see 30 degrees. You could see below 30 degrees. And so I prepare for that 20 degree range, typically for my 3 season setup. You know, I can get away with a 30, 25 maybe, but most quilts I'm just not going to trust on the ground. Below that 40 degrees is kind of where I think the cutoff is for me personally, being comfortable. And then after that, I'm going to be pushing to a sleeping bag. All right, so the first setup that I want to show you guys is for my wife. Now, she will backpack when it's fair weather. She's not going to backpack in real cold, and in fact, she doesn't like to really backpack in real hot either, but she will do that over the cold. And so I'm going to show you what I got her. She falls into that above 40 degree range for sure. So I got her a quilt setup. Now, what I did is I really wanted to make sure she was comfortable. And I'm going to use it too because I find it very comfortable as well. And so what I did is I bought her this Zenbivy setup. So this is the Zenbivy setup. Now the big thing with the Zenbivy is they are not trying to compete with the ultralighters out there. They are trying to stay lightweight, but not ultra lightweight. And what they do is they have 2 primary things that you're going to get. You're going to get this sheet with this hood. Comes across, and that does have down in it. It is warm. And then you get a quilt, and the quilt goes over top of this. And what you can see here is it creates almost like a bed. And the idea is you have your sheet like you would at home, and you have your blanket like you would at home. So it gives you a feeling like you are sleeping just like you would at home. What's the big difference between this setup and say another setup with trying to keep you warm is going to be this right here. This is it. You've got these sides here, and what they do is they have these little clips, and you put the clips on there and it kind of seals it up, and you have extra fabric. See this? If you undo these, you can see you have an extra couple baffles here. And those kind of sit underneath here so that way you don't get any cold spots. And when you move around, the pressure is coming here versus down at the corners. So this should lay nice and flat and not kind of move around as much. And that will hopefully, along with this kind of fabric right here, should help block out any sort of drafts that you might feel. Now this is the 25-degree setup, or what they call 25, Zenbivy 25. You'd think it'd be a 25-degree setup, and then they sell a 10, but those are ratings for if you're gonna die or whatever. So this is actually only good down to 35 is what they say. And it's got some good down in there. I've compared it to my hammock gear setup, and I can say it's about equivalent to the same amount of down that you're getting in another. Well, I was comparing it to a 30-degree quilt, and so this was pretty close. It's soft. I mean, this fabric, super soft. So this that you're laying on feels awesome. It feels like a good bed sheet. This fabric feels really nice, and it is a 20 denier. Which gives it a little extra weight, but again, it's nice. It's a good feeling, and it's much more solid than those ultralight materials. This setup personally is, again, rated to really 35, but I plan on pushing it no lower than 40. That is the plan with this setup. The other big thing that I like about this is stomach sleeping. All right. You've got your pillow goes up in here, and now normally when I'm sleeping on my stomach, I'm going to be hugging the pillow like that. And I also like to kick out a leg a little bit. This is the large wide, and what's nice is I can have my hands up and around here, and they don't get cold. This is going to be actually a big bonus you'll see later on when I go over my winter setup. But this is really, really nice hood design on that. The bottom side here is wide enough, because I got the wide, that you can actually undo this clip. See, they have this clip right here. You can undo this clip, and it won't lay out completely flat, but there's just this tiny little foot box. And so what that allows me to do is, if I want to, I can really spread that out super wide and keep my leg just kind of kicked out. So when I'm sleeping on my stomach, I can kick out my leg and all that, and it's going to be really nice and comfortable. My wife tried this out, and she slept like a baby for like a half hour. She was just supposed to try it out, and she was out. So this is going to be great. Well, once the temperature starts to drop, and you're pushing those real three-season temps, I'm talking closer to the beginning of spring, end of fall, where you might see 25 degrees on a random night. You might see 30, you might see 20. Depends. But you want to be kind of prepared for that true three-season, 20-degree setup that most people prepare for. And for that, I have gone to a sleeping bag. Now, I spent the big bucks here and bought a Western Mountaineering Alpinelite. This bag is impeccable. Let's take a look at it. All right, so one of the main things that you're going to be looking for in a quality down sleeping bag is the quality of the down. And this comes with 850 fill plus. So the minimum it can be rated for is 850 that the down goes in there for. However, it's definitely higher, especially mine is much higher than that. I get great I would guesstimate 950 is what most people online are saying. It could be 900, but ultimately it is premium down. It is 95% down, 5% feather. The other big thing that we're looking at here is the fabric. This is a 15D ripstop fabric. Now, most fabrics out there that are ultralight, including my hammock gear stuff, is going to be a 10D. Now, some of these places like super ultralight, 7D that you can get, that's the denier. That's how tough it is. That's how resistant it is to damage. That fabric, my buddy Grayson, he's got a really nice, kind of like a quilt, but it's a sleeping bag quilt. It's kind of different kind of thing. Anyway, his setup is a 7D, and it's see-through. I mean, you can see right through this thing and see the down. You can't see him, but you can see the down. And it just worries me. I didn't want something that light. I was originally looking for a 20D with 950 fill power. I wanted the money to be spent not on the fabric, but on that down. And I wanted a little bit extra comfort in how tough it was. Well, this was actually perfect at a 15D. And I have no problem. I don't see anything coming out of this. No down is coming through this fabric, which is huge. I'm telling you, it's a big deal. So I really, really like that fabric. Now, let's take a closer look here. When we're talking about a sleeping bag, typically a sleeping bag is going to be much better with drafts, right? That's its big thing. Well, this takes it far above everybody else. Take a look at this, guys. All right, starting here at the top, you've got this collar that goes around, and you've got a cinch cord with it, and this goes 360 degrees all the way around that baffle. So you can cinch this all the way around your neck, and you will not feel any drafts. Now, I wouldn't get too tight with it because it might not be as comfortable, but you can seal out pretty much every draft around your neck. Now, one of the major spots you're going to find any sleeping bag will have a slight cold spot. Specifically when you get pushing down to those single digits, you might feel this and it might matter. But higher temps, not so much. But these lower temps, you're going to want to look out for the zipper. Now, you can see this zipper has a baffle. You can see that. And it is a nice puffy, and it just continues on with this neck baffle. And it goes all the way down the length of this thing. And what that does is when you zip this up, you're not going to feel that cold spot. You're not going to feel that little bit of air, cold air hitting you. So that is excellent. And as we walk down here, you're going to see nice big baffles, and they get a little bit bigger as they get down here. And at the foot end, this thing has all of this. This baffle right here, as far as I can tell, is completely filled with down. And I haven't had a single bit of issue. Now, I've taken this only down to about 30, maybe 28, 29. But I was so warm in it that I wasn't even completely covered up. I actually had it open. So as much as I talk about sealing it up, I didn't even need it. But this thing was super warm. Now check this out. You think you're wasting a lot of weight on these sleeping bags, but if you look on this bottom side, there's not much down. It's just, if you look at that, there's really not much to it. So you're paying for the fabric and a little bit of down, but not much. So they really optimized where the down is. You've got a lot of down here, a lot of down around the shoulders, regular amount of down, and then a lot of down here again. This has a zipper that goes all the way almost down to the foot box, all the way up, which is great for opening it up. But it also has a two-way zipper. So I can open this up and let my feet hang out and still have up there buttoned up. I could do it however I want. And the best part about this, everyone, is check this out. This zipper stops here. A lot of these continue because they think it's added. It's going to be a nice little feature that you can open it up like a blanket. And they bring it all the way around to the other side so you can open it all the way up. The problem is you've got to make sure that you have no drafts by your feet then with a baffle system. And you're going to be feeling around trying to get rid of any cold spots. With this, it's all down right there. I mean, you have no cold spots. No cold spots right there. So I really think attention to detail matters on this. I mean, look at this. This is how much they care about all the little details. When you're talking about opening and closing on a zipper, check this out. See this little tape right here? This tape runs all the way down the side. And what that tape does is it protects and holds open this baffle. So the baffle is being utilized better with that tape, and it keeps it from getting snagged when you're opening and closing it. They do that up here at the collar as well. So even when you zip all the way up to your past where your head's going to be, or your neck, you've got this little tape to protect it, and it keeps it open. It keeps that baffle nice and spread out rather than running into your zipper. Really awesome feature. You've, of course, got your cinch cords to cinch this all the way up. And then you've got your cinch cord under here. So you can have this part open and this part closed. You can, whatever you want to do. And I like that they're on the side, so they're not flapping on your face when you have everything cinched up. All right, so that's my 3-season setup, which is a beast of a sleeping bag. Now, there's obviously other factors that can go into any of your setups, but that's kind of what works for me. I've got a quilt system that goes to the 40-degree range. Once we start pushing those colder temps, I'm switching to a sleeping bag. I'm switching to something more reliable. Hopefully this was helpful to somebody kind of trying to figure out what they wanted to do for insulation when it comes to their backpacking setup. Specifically on the ground. But yeah, anyway guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.